Welcome to the Rosbergs, your marriage coaches. Join Dr. Gary and Barbie Rosberg, America's family coaches, who bring 4 decades of empowering marriages across the U.S. and internationally for this podcast to equip you and your partner with encouragement and tools for a great marriage. Here now are your hosts, Dr. Gary and Barbie Rosberg.
Welcome to the Rosbergs, your marriage coaches. We're Dr. Gary and Barbie Rosberg. And, Barbie, I mean, something happened with our last podcast.
What happened?
Well, we titled it, you've got questions, we've got answers. And so we answered them. And so now we're titling this one, You've Got More Questions, we got more answers. And so we're going to go back because our bread and butter for over 20 years was radio. We did it 6 days a week, right? Monday through Friday in our syndicated, and on Saturdays on News Radio 1040 WHO, big 50,000 watt. Everyone listened to WHO in Iowa and during the heyday of it. And so we'd love to take callers' questions, and we'd love to take your questions. So if you have them, you can email them to info@afcoaches.com. info@afcoaches.com. So you had more questions. We've got more answers. Barbie's going to read them because I don't know where you're going.
No, I just enjoy you.
Yeah.
And I enjoy you not knowing the answers ahead of time.
Or not knowing the questions.
That's right. So let's see.
Yeah, this will not be contrived, I guarantee.
Let's see how good you can be. It's like putting a woman in the kitchen after 50 years. Does she still know how to cook? It's like putting Gary behind the mic after 20-some years of radio. Can he still answer on the spot? And I know he can. So, Gary, someone wrote in and asked, this is a great question. Mm-hmm. What makes a husband feel deeply respected and appreciated?
Well, how much time do I have?
All the time you need.
Okay. First of all, a thank you. Now, where do we get that?
We got that from Jeff and Shanti Felden in their marriage research. Unpack it, Gary.
Well, they researched all these people and said, that there's a underlying experience of inadequacy for most men. That, we look okay and we look like we're functioning on the top. It's kind of like a duck, but our little, paddles are going underneath. And a lot of men feel inadequate. They said a lot of women feel unlovable. And so they're coaching, and we've written more about it and talked about it, but we give credit to them. Is that if you want to have a great marriage, wives, help your husband experience a greater sense of adequacy, because we want to do things right. And one of the ways to do that is when you catch him doing something right, or even attempting something, say thank you. So I think a husband feels, more like the man that God's called him to be when he feels like he's living up to the needs that his wife has or the expectations, and she grants a thank you so that he feels more adequate.
Respect.
Yeah, man needs respect.
What's that like?
Well, that's our friend Emerson Eggerichs.
Yeah.
And
it also is the Word of God.
Well, of course it is.
And talk about what the Word of God says.
Yeah. Well, in Ephesians, we read that a woman is to respect her husband. A man is to love his wife as Christ loves the church.
Yeah, but respect, unpack the way a man sees it and experiences it, and because we as wives love our husbands and we want to comfort you.
Yeah, I think part of it, Barbie, is when a wife expresses gratitude, expresses a sense of honor, expresses a sense of commitment and interest in her husband, then that man feels respected. When she is caught speaking well of him in front of his kids or his parents or his grandkids or his friends, when she only has eyes for him because he is enough. Those are all things that feed the respect of a husband. And I say this at events and conferences, and we'll say it in the future. Men are getting beat up all day long. And a lot of women go, well, what about us? And I said, well, that's a different topic. But men are getting beat up all day long. And, no man calls 1-800-WHAM-WHAM-WHAM and, whines about it, because that's not our style. But what we do is we take stuff and we kind of go subterranean with it. So if we didn't have voices in the home we grew up in, with an affirming dad, if we don't have a vibrant relationship with Christ where we're regenerating in our spirit, if we are running with, dogs that got fleas and those guys are pulling us down, if we're living in the flesh rather than in the spirit of God, all those things erode a sense of a man's adequacy and becoming all that God created him to be. So the front line of that, the people who have the first row admission every day to a husband's experience is his wife. Mm-hmm. And when you do this in spades, when you believe in me, when you speak well of me, when you encourage me, when you affirm me, when you reflect that I'm enough, all those things, all of that builds a sense of well-being for a husband, me, that feels respected.
I don't tell you you're enough. I tell you you're perfect. You are perfect for me, but at the same time...
Perfectly imperfect.
No, well, in your eyes, but not mine. Yeah. But when a woman seeks to bring out the best in her husband, when she reminds him, say he's going through a tough time, she reminds him of what he did well or how God brought them through another difficult time. What's that do for a man?
Well, it makes him want to get up and keep going forward. I mean, and Barbie, you know me better than anybody who knows me. The one personality that it's hard for me to be around is a critical woman's voice. So when it's toxic, when it's critical, when she's criticizing her husband, when she's diminishing her kids, when she's, crabbing about the pastor, all of it, I shut down because I was raised in a home of honor. And a mom, a sister, my sister had polio. My dad, elevated the well-being of my mom and my sister above everything. And so when we would dishonor, whether we would dishonor somebody that was different than us, dishonor somebody with a disability, dishonor somebody who, grew up in a different neighborhood, grew up, whatever it is, you just didn't do dishonor. I mean, my dad and my grandpa before him, I mean, they were men of honor. And so that's my default setting. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not that I don't, mess that up, I'm sure occasionally, but honor. And so when honor is extolled and our wife catches us honoring others, and then she honors us, it just buoys up our sails so that we can continue to go forward.
Oh, I think that's outstanding. I won't ask any more questions. I think you've answered that so well.
Okay.
I have another question, though, that was sent in. It says, how do we discover each other's changing love needs over time? Mm-hmm. Great question.
Yeah.
We did write the book, The 5 Love Needs of Men and Women. Yeah. And I want you to know we just got through filming a small group series on the 5 love needs of men and women. It'll be out probably this fall or in January for sure. And that if you as a small group are interested in going through marriage material, that the vignettes of Gary and I are about 10 minutes. And then it opens up so many conversation starters for you and your small group to build connection with one another. I'm going to let you answer this question in a moment. But I learned from a dear woman by the name of Mary Farrar many, many years ago. And she suggested this, and I've never forgotten it, that when you go into a small group, pick out couples, maybe 2 or 3 at the most if you want. Choose couples that want to grow in their marriage, where women aren't critical of their husbands, where husbands speak well and speak life about their wives. And find people that you want to grow with over time that are going the same direction you're going in your marriage. Because these are the people that if you stick together, you will end up more like in 5 years than you even are today. Yeah. So thank you, Mary Farrar, for teaching that. Such great wisdom.
Yeah, Mary and Steve.
That's right. Our dear friends.
Our dear friends.
Gary, the question, how do we discover each other's changing love needs over time?
Well, Barbie, I just got done editing those 8 videos.
Yeah.
And they're about 20 minutes each. So
Well, cheerleader here. It's only 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Pull you in, and then I've got you in the corner.
I just want to check the expectation.
Yeah, but gals, you're going to love it. Go ahead.
In there,
guys, you will too.
We quote a granddaughter that went to her grandfather and said, Grandpa, how did you love the same woman, for over 60 years of marriage? And he said, oh, she's not the same woman. And he said, well, you've only been married once. He said, oh, I've only been married once, but that woman has changed over time.
Probably every day.
Well, I'm not sure I should take that bait.
Oh, it's
okay. But, Barbie, that was a pretty insightful comment.
Yeah.
Because you can't love one another in marriage the same way, at the 10-year mark, the 30-year mark, the 50-year mark, the 60-year mark, because you will not be keen on understanding how that is evolving and how the needs are changing. We are changing.
Yeah, we are.
And so when we're changing, we need to remain teachable so that we can capture the opportunity for what at that stage of life does that spouse, husband or wife, need in order for their spouse, who is their closest brother or sister, as well as husband or wife, certainly, to partner with God in the sanctification of helping them become all that God's called them to be.
I agree with you. Gary, it was years ago, I remember a woman saying to me, she was very vulnerable with me about her husband. And she goes, oh, he's not the same man I married. Right. He was so different before we got married.
Yeah.
And if I had had the wherewithal, I would have said, haven't you changed too?
Sure.
But it's in the little moments of the day that we have the opportunity to connect with each other over time. It's when we can bring up the topic every day. Hey, I noticed you were doing this. Hey, have you got a new interest? Hey, let's take some time apart for even 10 minutes. Sit down in the front yard or as we're driving wherever we are, and let's talk about some of these things. Because in the Word of God, it's the little foxes.
Yeah.
And what little foxes are entering into your home, your marriage, that are multiplying and making you more distracted or disconnected from one another. And we don't want that going on. We want you to be connected. Find that appointment time every single day, not 5 days a week, every single day. Take 10 minutes. Unpack your day, unpack your heart, connect and pray together. There are many ways to connect emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Do you notice I looked at Gary? Very safe place. But the reality is, be creative with how you connect. One day it might be talk time, another day a different day, but make sure you're connecting. Praying every day is wonderful for the heart, wonderful alignment. And the thing I love about it when we are both taking care of our hearts before we talk to one another is we've got something to say. When we take care of our hearts, we prayed. When we've taken care of our hearts, we've listened. When we've taken care of our hearts, we observe our own hearts. We confess before we open up our mouths and try to explain something and blame and do all those things.
Yeah, I was speaking yesterday to a group of men, and one of the comments I made is that marriage is not about grand gestures. It's about small moments. And I walked to the parking lot with a guy. There were about 100 guys in that room, and I walked to the parking lot with one of the last guys in the building. And he said, Gary, that struck me, what you said. Because what we tend to do is we plan the trip to Disney World, or we plan the, once a year date night, or we plan the, whatever that is. And we expect to experience everything during those times, but those tend to be the grand gestures. Now, do the grand gestures. I mean, go to Disney World and take your kids and, yada, yada, yada. I mean, we love that stuff too.
Take your wife.
But very importantly are the small moments.
Every day.
And it's, our friend John Trent. I mean, John just called me today, and so he's kind of in my mind. But he talked about vector changes, that when you make 1 or 2 degree changes, over time they exponentially grow, and you see real change occur. And so the good news is you don't have to wait for the grand gestures in order to invest in your ever-changing marriage. You start today by doing the small moments, and the small changes, the vector changes, so that you can become all that God called you to become.
You know, in a future show, we're going to be communicating with you what some of those small gestures and small moments are. And I can't wait.
Yeah.
But not today, unless we thread it through in some of our answers. I have a question that you have not seen and that you don't know about, but are you ready for it?
Yeah. Stump the radio guy.
It's spiritual intimacy.
Okay.
How can couples pray together naturally without it feeling awkward?
Yeah, you got to practice it. In other words, it likely doesn't come naturally. So here's the deal, Barbie. If you grew up in a home as a husband or a wife that didn't experience a vibrant relationship with Christ, so if God, wasn't surrendered to by a mom and a dad and siblings and grandparents, if you didn't have that experience, then you've not learned it. Secondly, if you've grown up in a home where it was experienced and expressed because there was a deep love for God, but what we have found is even in those homes, the second kind of home, they don't necessarily develop the practice, and it's a practice of the spiritual discipline of praying together, and what we would suggest praying out loud together. Praying out loud together in conversational prayer, petitioning God, but also praying out loud together with gratitude prayers. And we do both of those. So Barb and I, we have just, and you give the best modeling of this of anybody I've ever met. So you prompted me and given me more encouragement to continue to do it. But both conversational prayers, petitioning God, and sharing our heart, but also gratitude prayers. But none of that comes very natural, because you feel exposed and you feel vulnerable and you feel, well, gosh, I'm talking to the creator of the universe and you're going to hear what I'm going to say. Well, what if it's, awkward that I'm bringing something to the surface that I'm asking healing for or redemption for or forgiveness for? Or what if I reveal some of my insecurities or frustrations? Well, that is the core of a healthy marriage. So when you're doing it intellectually, when you're doing it spiritually, when you're doing it sexually, but it's also when you're emotionally, but it's when you do it in the spirit, Barbie. And so I think spiritual intimacy is the bomb.
I do too.
Yeah.
For women and the 5 love needs of men and women. I know you said earlier you love it when I touch you.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that on different shows. So I am continuing to build this bridge right here and connect with you. But the number 2 need that women reported to us when we were writing the book, The 5 Love Needs of Men and Women, is the need for emotional intimacy. Yeah, and that means that we are connecting through talk time. Yeah. There's a beautiful element when there is prayer time out loud with one another. If perhaps your husband or your wife isn't emotionally expressive, and it goes both ways, we realize that, and we leave plenty of room for that in our findings. But when you go to the foot of the cross, you pray out loud, just as you just described. Mm-hmm. You share in sentence prayers. You go back and forth. There is vulnerability. So if you're not experiencing emotional connection in your marriage, you can experience it through prayer. And when I know that when I am listening to Gary pray, I'm hearing the sheerest part of his soul, your heart, your mind. And no matter if I'm frustrated or I'm upset or anything else, it clears it. Mm-hmm. Because the man that you are authentic before the Lord. Mm-hmm. Now, you might be mad at me or something because I do a lot to make you go crazy.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do. I've got plenty of Lucy stories. Very proud of every one of them.
I love Lucy.
That's right. But in reality, when we join together in prayer, there is an emotional vulnerability attaching to Christ and the three of us, 3 in 1. Mm-hmm. It is Christ, husband and wife, and it is so magnificent. Mm-hmm. Meets a huge emotional need met for a woman. And again, sometimes about 20% of women don't need this, and 20% of men maybe do. Bottom line is a good marriage needs connection.
We unpack a lot of this in our new The 5 Love Needs of Men and Women video series. And you can learn more about that at therosberggroup.com. And there's the video series. There'll be a workbook, virtual workbook, and at some point a printed workbook. It's great for couples. So there are 8 sessions on there. It's great for small groups. It's great for church-wide usage to get everybody on the same page. It's great for retreats or conferences. And you know what? It's also great for marriage coaches to use with the couples that they're coaching. And so we're going to be using iterations of it with all of those populations. We're jazzed about it because we've really done a heart check and said, what do we want to get into video format and podcast format? What messages do we want to build in the library that we have while we're able to do that? So that not only it edifies and encourages and equips people of this generation, but also the next generation that is screaming out for some common sense and some truth and some how-tos to either reinforce what their parents and grandparents instilled or for the first time to learn it. So take a peek at that. That'll be released, as Barbie said, in the fall of 2026.
Okay.
All right. Do you want to try one more question before we scoot?
One more. And I've got one that's a little bit heavier.
Okay.
And so as we answer it, we want to make sure we answer it full on, but we want to bring people up also. So this is close to the heart. My husband shuts down during conflict. I pursue harder. We both end up exhausted. How do we break the cycle? As I open up for you to share this, this reminds me of Emerson Eggerichs when he talks about the crazy making cycle. And so how do you break it? How do you pause? How do you ponder? And what are next steps, Gary? I know you'd probably like to talk about dynamics.
Well, Barbie,
Lots of different things.
I mean, one of the things that strikes me, and we've been doing research with Japanese culture and family and the way Japanese resolve conflict within marriage. Fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. And it's breakthrough material for a lot of husbands and wives. So if a wife is introducing something to a husband that's an issue of conflict, he remains silent for 3 to 5 minutes. And this practice is called M-A, in the Japanese culture. And he's not remaining quiet to be passive aggressive. He's not remaining quiet because he doesn't know what to say. He's not remaining quiet because, he's necessarily thinking. He's remaining quiet so that he can self-regulate his emotions and not jump in, take the bait, which we tend to do in the Western culture, and run with it. So if a wife says, you know what, honey, I just feel like we're not spending much time together. When he wants to come back with a retort, well, that's because you're always working or at your mom's house or always doing stuff with the kids. You don't really want to be with me. Now all of a sudden you've got all these different issues on the table. But when you remain silent for 3 to 5 minutes and you reflect on that and you self-regulate, so you bring your internal temperature down, and then you seek to understand what is it that she is saying. So you ask clarifying questions, you feed back, you keep the spotlight on her during that interchange of discussion. When we do those kinds of things, you're building the safety and trust of the relationship. And then a man's going to be less apt to withdraw, to blame. He's not going to become aggressive. He's not going to become passive. He's going to break the bent of those old systems and learn how to engage one another.
Let's imagine that because she has tried and tried, she gets louder and louder and becomes more dominating. And he instead pulls in and closes up because of his inability to meet her mind to mind.
Yeah.
What would you say to that couple? What would you say to her? What would you say to him?
Well, I would say he needs to continue to take the risk to experience and express what he is internally processing. And she needs to give him the space and not condemn, not control, not be aggressive, not blame, not bring up all the history. I think those are recipes for disaster, the things that we don't want to do. the things that we do want to do is be respecter of a person. The thing we do want to do is learn what is it that they're experiencing. The thing that we do want to do is love and honor and cherish our spouse. The thing that we do want to do is seek a healthy response to it so that we can move forward in unity. The thing that we do want to do, and listen to this, is take one issue at a time. I mean, I'm a trained marriage therapist, and I would sit during those 25,000 hours of marriage counseling that I did over 20 years or whatever. And there were times there was so much stuff flying in that room, that counseling room, of accusations and, grievances. And I mean, Dr. Arthur Brooks calls it grinding the grievances. There was so much grinding going on that it deflates everybody in the room. And so, Barbie, you got to break that pattern. I mean, you got to break those transmitters in your brain and move towards affirmation and encouragement, belief in one another, surrendering it to Christ, listening to one another, being a respecter of persons, and knowing that if your goal is to be heard and to get to the other side, that's a lot different than convincing somebody that they should think or feel just the way you do. And so there's plenty of room in there, I would say.
Wonderful.
More questions?
I think that's
and
it
more
for
answers?
today.
That was it
for today. Yeah. Thank you for joining us today.
And we'd love to have you send in your questions at info@afcoaches.com. And then keep listening to the podcast. And then you may just hear your answer coming up to the questions that you have. We bless you. And we encourage you to guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. And we're so grateful for you. And so thanks for joining us today.
Hey listeners, make sure to stay up to date with the Rosbergs by subscribing to their show, Your Marriage Coaches, on any major podcast platform such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you will get an alert each time a new episode is released. Whatever platform you're listening on, please rate the podcast and leave us a review.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Rosbergs, Your Marriage Coaches, with Dr. Gary and Barbie Rosberg. To find out more, go to americasfamilycoaches.com. Once you're there, you can check out the many resources that they have available, from their many books to their informative video series, 6 Secrets to a Lasting Love. They've got all the tools you need to help you grow deeper in your relationship with your spouse and with God. Go to americasfamilycoaches.com and click on the Resources tab. We appreciate your prayers and support for this ministry. Find out how you can come alongside us when you go to americasfamilycoaches.com. Just search the top of the index for the Donate tab. Thank you for listening in today. Be sure to join us next time for another episode of The Rosbergs, Your Marriage Coaches, with Gary and Barbie Rosberg.
Remember your first date? The anticipation, the laughter, the feeling that you could talk for hours and never run out of things to say. But somewhere between busy schedules, responsibilities, and the everyday routine, those moments can fade. What if you could bring them back on purpose? In 40 Unforgettable Dates with Your Mate, Dr. Gary and Barbie Rosberg give you more than just date ideas. They give you intentional, creative ways to reconnect, emotionally, spiritually, and relationally. From meaningful conversations to fun, memorable experiences, each date is designed to meet the deeper love needs of husbands and wives. Because great marriages don't just happen, they're built, one intentional moment at a time. Start creating moments that matter today. Visit therosberggroup.com and click on the Resources tab to get your copy of 40 Unforgettable Dates with Your Mate.